All right, before we start, I just want to answer some questions about the paper that I'm using. I'm using the indigo paper, and I'm going to see if we can see. If you take a look at this, is the proper side to use. Michelle, you were using indigo paper, I believe, and we were talking on emails. And here's the other side. It has a different texture to it. I don't know if you can see, but there is some striations going through here, or lines, which I think is from the rollers. I'm trying to figure out. Usually when you're looking for the right side of the paper, manufacturers do have the right side of the paper listed. And like the Arches paper has the stamp or the imprint or the watermark in one or the other corner. That's the correct side to use, so they say. You can use either side. You will get different different look on your painting. This is the right side. And I know you can't see this that much, but sometimes these lines that go through here are more prominent than other lines, depending on what batch you're getting your paper from. So I'm always very careful, and I have used both sides. There's nothing wrong with it, but one side is maybe a little bit more preferable than the other. So if you have any questions on the paper, please ask. But make sure it's always 100% cotton, because if it doesn't say 100% cotton, it means it has wood fiber in it, and that has a tendency of pilling up on the paper. It falls apart. So you want 100% cotton. But Michelle, when you're done putting your trees in, please send me the photograph in an email, and I'll take a look at it again. But you had a good start, but I couldn't understand why you had blank spots here and there, or light spots. I don't know what happened to the paper. All right, here we go. There's a couple of different ways that you can attack a painting, and I always tell you to work from background to foreground, large to small, and work your values from light to dark and your colors more intense to gray. But in this particular case, sometimes I'm not going to work from background to foreground in this case. I'm actually going to reverse it because of the size of the barn and the prominence of it. I'm going to work the foreground first and then go back to the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray just a little bit of water on the top part of the barn and a little bit down here. And I am going to take the raw sienna and a little bit of the brown madder, or if you only have alizarin crimson, that's fine. And I'm going to begin washing in large passages of this. And a little bit of the cobalt blue mixed in just to slightly gray this down a little bit more. And I'm going to try to make this barn somewhat on the colorful side. I'm going to add a little bit more blue over here to get a little bit less attention to that part of the barn. I'm also going to add a little bit in here and underneath here. By the time I get to the background, which is timing in putting down the watercolor, this should be dry or fairly dry. And I'm going to put in a couple movements of the cobalt blue in here, like so. So then you can come back and you can do a number of things. Now, I'm going to add a lot of the raw sienna. I'm mixing right in with what I've already had and some of the yellow medium. And I'm going to put that right over here. We get a little bit more intense color, and some of the burnt sienna I'm going to add in here up in the barn here. And where if it leaks down, it's not a problem. So I'm going to put that right across the whole thing, because we're working from dark to light, or light to dark, I mean. Suddenly I became an oil painter. But it's very over the whole thing. It's going to be really quite, how should I say it? It's quite connected. Everything's going to be connected to a certain extent. Now when I get down to the bottom with the grasses and so forth, I am putting in a lot of color. Add a little bit of the cobalt blue mixture to this here and there. And I'm going to add a little bit more cobalt over in here. But I'm treating the whole thing overall to be very abstract looking. I'm trying to encompass the whole thing. I'm going to leave a few openings for some of those lighter rocks in here. I'm going to use a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to pop some in here. Just let it bleed. It's okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this down here. And I'm going to let it fall. And I'm going to take my smaller brush and give a feeling of some of those wisps of grass here and there. Like so. And then I'm going to move out into the back plane here. And I'm going to take the raw sienna and I'm going to add it to the cobalt blue, which will push it back a little bit more. So I'll have because this is going to get more intense anyways, or more involved. Excuse me. And I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and the cobalt blue, mixed it in with what I had already here. And I'm going to put that background tree stand back here. I'm not worried about the trees that are coming out from the side. And if you just take a little bit of, while we're doing this, a little bit of the cobalt blue mixed in with what I have here, I am going to spritz in for extra color and some of the pure burnt sienna to give this as much starting texture as we possibly can for this. And it also gives me time to put the sky in. And I'm going to clean this up here a little bit on top, because timing is everything. That's why I started up here, move around. By the time I come back to here, this is fairly dry and we won't have a lot of seeping in of color. We'll have a little bit, but not much. But I want it to be all encompassing. So I have a lot of cobalt blue up there. I'm going to add just a touch of the raw sienna to this. As we move down, it gets a little bit grayer because it's like a globe that we're looking from the inside. And it also picks up a little bit of yellow. So that's the all-encompassing thing. I sprayed this a little bit with water up here, and I started off with some of the raw sienna and added a little bit of brown matter, a little bit of the blue to gray things down. Came with a lot more raw sienna in here, and various raw sienna and burnt sienna, a little bit of blue down in here. You can see on how it's all melded together at this point, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I added every color on my palette in the barn, in the grass, and then the only thing that's kind of separated a little bit is the sky being a little bit more blue, but it has the yellow in it. But at this point, I'm going to take a little bit of that color off at the bottom because the horizon is darker up here and it gets lighter and grayer as it goes back. So I want that to be able to show. And while we're at it, since I've got this staining the paper, while it's still wet, I'm going to pull this out in here to show the field gets a little bit lighter in color. So sometimes you put down a color, leave it stay there just a little bit. As long as it doesn't get dry, you can lift it up and you'll never get back to the white of the paper, but it does make it lighter and it stains somewhat. Now at the same time, I am going to go in here. There's certain things I'm always anticipating I need to do. I'm going to lift out this post in here while it's wet with a little bit of a wet paper towel, and I'm going to lift out the bottom of this. So you start to see a little bit of shape in here. Not too much, because we can always put in more shape later on. I want to lift this out just a little bit more. And then we have the ceiling up in here. Okay, so that's where you want to be. I'm going to give that a little bit of pat there to dry it up quicker, so you guys can go ahead and I will watch what you're doing. If you have any questions, please yell. Denise, I have no image of you being here, but you're here.
Here I am. Sorry, I was on a call.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm here.
Okay.
I missed that whole intro, but I think I should be able to figure it out.
I can give it back to you in Russian.
Sometimes
I
that's
at the top of the paper up here just a little bit.
Okay.
Then I started adding the raw sienna, the brown matter very lightly, a little bit of cobalt blue. Then I came down and intensified the color down in here with the raw sienna, a little bit of the burnt sienna, the cobalt blue, and I added a lot of the raw sienna, burnt sienna, and a little bit of cobalt blue down in here.
Okay.
Then the last thing I went to after this had semi-dried, I put the sky in.
Okay.
And then I lifted the bottom half in this back field.
Gotcha. Okay.
Kathy, I can't see you either. There you are.
So up in the top left corner was burnt sienna and a little brown matter and a little cobalt blue, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the barn is pretty weathered. It's in mid-western Wisconsin. There's a lot of field stone through the middle part and a little bit on the upper part, dropped by the glacier. A lot of the foundations up there are nothing but stone. Really pretty stone, but excuse me. Beth, did you get to do the painting from last week? No? Okay.
No, sorry. It's been crazy.
I
I'm
understand
hoping a
that.
new contractor shows up tomorrow.
Oh, jeez.
I know.
try to make this all encompassing. There are no hard edges in this really, except where I left white. And that's going to be textured anyway, so it won't make any difference. But try not to have any stop and start places. I'm going to dry this just for a minute, so hang on. Remember, once you put the watercolor down, leave it flow. Don't go playing with it or noodling around with it, because that's how I made a lot of mistakes as a student. Something that you just want to let it flow, let it do what it wants to do. Then you understand it a little bit better. Anybody ready to show me what they're doing?
Dale, Diana, I wanted you to look at it, tell me if I need to take some color away.
All right, go ahead.
You
You
see it?
got your, what's that dark thing going down the middle of the barn?
You mean this?
Yeah, up on top here, you have a couple of dark streaks that,
Well, that's the blue that is darker than,
yeah, it's darker than what it should be. You want to maybe pull up this a little bit on the top here.
okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Sponge or paper towel?
Use a sponge in this case. But don't scrub the paper. Spray it with a little bit of water and then kind of sponge it up. If you have to use a paper towel, go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, Dale. This is Kathy. Want to take a look at this?
Yep, let me find you on my slide rule here. Okay, go ahead. I see
Okay.
just part of the painting. I see your hand.
Oh. Sorry. Not so good at this.
Hey, I'm no better, so don't feel bad.
There we go. How's that?
You need to pull back further.
Now?
I'm only seeing a portion of the painting. Okay, now I see it all. Okay. All right, that's not bad for a start. There's not too much you can do wrong in this particular painting at the beginning because you're going to build it and mold it from there. So you're fine.
Okay.
I was zooming with somebody last week and I had my finger over the lens on the video, and so they said I couldn't see me.
I'm ready to show you mine.
Okay, who was that, please?
Barb.
Okay, go ahead, Barb. All right, that's a good start. Keep it all very simple at the beginning. That's good.
Thanks.
Yep.
I can show you mine. Denise.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, you're fine. Kathy, can you show me yours?
You just looked at mine.
Oh, okay, never mind.
He liked it so much he wants to see it again.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
there you go. Lori, can I see yours if you're ready? Okay, good. Excuse me. And Marge, can I see yours, please? All right, good. So far, so good. Wonderful. And Deborah, can I see yours, please? All right. You're fine too. This looks very almost flat looking right now, so it will take charge of things. Beth, can I see yours, please? Okay, good. And Janet? All right, you're fine too. You got the foreground a little bit too dark, but that's not a problem at this point. So we're going to be adding more color to this anyways.
Should I spray it with water?
You could, but that's what I'm going to do the next time around. I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So leave it alone.
Okay, great.
You're fine. And Diana, do you need to show me anything?
I took some of the color off, so hopefully,
All right, let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's better.
okay.
Yeah, you're getting a little heavy-handed, young lady.
I know, but I love the colors.
Okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to spray this area. The grass is down here. I want a little bit more texture. So I'm going to give this a little bit of spit of water, as I call it, here and there. And I'm going to leave it there for just a minute. I'm going to go up into the walls also, the stone walls a little bit, to give this a little bit of texture. And it's a matter of waiting just a little bit or a lot, depends on the color. Darker colors you'll get more textured pulled up, where lighter ones you usually don't get a lot, but I wanted to pull up a little bit so it doesn't pull up too much at this point, but it does lighten up. You can see in this area here on how it started pulling things up in this area here and a little bit over in here. So I'm going to try it one more time with a little bit more water. And I'm going to, yeah, that's pulling up a little bit more. That's what I wanted. So you don't have to wait that long for it. So what you're seeing here initially is a little bit more textured in here. It will give us something to work with later on. Some of it will be covered up, but that's pretty normal. So, all right, I am going to go into first the dark parts of the barn down here, and this will help us establish how light we have things going on around it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the interior of the barn openings, and I'm going to take the raw sienna and a little bit of the cobalt blue here with a lot more color to it. And I'm going to go up in here and I'm going to paint underneath here. And what I've done here is I've successively started off with the yellow here, and I added that part that was more cobalt up in here so that I can tuck this underneath here. I'm not worried about showing the beams or anything at this point. That's all detail. I'm going to add a little bit of the ultramarine blue and the brown matter to this. So I get kind of a violet color. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to go in to this area here. And I want to make my dark areas always somewhat on the colorful side. I don't want it flat value. I want to make it a little bit more interesting. But if I put too much interest in it, I'll be in trouble. So I'm adding a little bit more as I go of the same color. And I'm going to bring that all the way across the bottom of those beams on the inside, blocking the opening in the window here, but not totally. I'm still leaving some of the initial color inside here. And then I'll go in and I'll add some of the raw sienna down on the bottom here. A little bit more raw sienna. So I'm looking at how this wall is got a little bit of dark edge to it, not too much, but it's just establishing some of these things that need to be put in, because you can't tell how light your lights are unless your darks are dark enough.
Is the picture of the photo, is there a door? Is that what that is? A door open?
There's a door opening right back here.
All right.
Then there's a wall. I haven't put the door in yet because I need for this to dry.
Right.
So I'm going to come outside and I'm going to start adding some of the other colors down in here. And I'm going to be very casual about it. I'm going to go down to this opening back here. This has got a lot of gray in it all the way down to the end. So we have this opening here. It kind of overlaps here a little bit. And then it goes into a little bit darker scenario back. As this falls back, it's picking up less light.
What color is that you're using now?
That's the brown matter and the ultramarine blue. And I had a little bit of the raw sienna, and I'm going to capture some of that over here. And I'm going to bring this right on down into the grasses here. Like so. And then we have another opening right here. So I'm going to put the dark in first. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that raw sienna that's mixed in with it, and I'm going to put that right next to it so we don't have a hard edge, so to speak. It'll kind of soften up a little bit.
That looks like another, is that another like door opening?
It's
or?
another door opening here at the other end of the barn.
Okay. It just helps me to.
We had some farms in the woods when I was a kid up in Wisconsin down the road from us. And I was always amazed on how many door openings a barn had. You know, you figure that there's one or two, one big one, one little one. But there are a number of openings in the barn. So I'm darkening this up again. It's still wet. So we'll maintain a certain amount of softness to it. Then there's another opening back here, a door opening. And when you have things in the shadow or dark, you want to keep them on the softer side, because if you have hard edges, sharp edges, they will come forward. So that's why I'm trying to keep a lot of this on the softer side at this point. Now I'm going to come down into the grass here, and I'm going to use my smaller brushes. And I'm going to take a lot of the raw sienna. I'm going to mix it right in with, excuse me, right in with the color that I had up in here. And I am going to start by, in the background here, I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to it. And I'm going to use a dry brush, which means taking it, tapping it off on a paper towel. And I'm going to start at this end. And I'm not going to do it equally everywhere. I'm going to utilize what I have down already on the paper and kind of go around some of it. This protrudes right up into here, so I let it come up into there. And there's going to be some light spots here and there. So I'm being very careful in molding this. And again, I'm going to dry it off. I'm going to dry brush a lot of this. And I'm watching which way the grass falls at this point. I take a little bit of the blue because we've got the darker grass right in here. It's just a matter of picking and choosing where you want things to be. And down here we have some other grasses. And I'm looking again at how this is falling this way and that way for the way the grass was matted down. So I'm taking a little bit of the burnt sienna, mixing it up in this blue-violet mixture here, and I'm adding a little bit extra darkness here. And I'm taking it very slowly. I don't want to go too fast at this point because then you'll end up putting too much down and you won't need all of it. Over here on this side, I'm not paying too much attention to that. And I'm going to take the toothbrush with some of this mixture of burnt sienna and raw sienna. I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue and the brown matter mixed with that. And then I'm going to be very careful in adding some of the other textures that go up into the wall here. I'm going to start painting around some of the rocks here that we have on this part, and I'm just kind of going with the pattern that was created. I'm not trying to create a pattern. I'm utilizing the pattern that was here already. There's a step right here. And there's a whole bunch of rocks in here, in this area here. And I don't want those rocks to be as light as what's in the photograph. They're much too light. There's a few rocks that are off over on this side. And I'm painting kind of in between the rocks themselves. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of the raw sienna, burnt sienna mixture I have here that's very light, and a little bit of the ultramarine blue and the brown matter here. I'm going to take just a little bit more. And I'm going to start adding in a little bit of texture into the stone. And we're going to pull some out later on. We're going to put some in later on. I don't want to do too much, but we have a bit of a cast shadow that's right off over here. So I put it down, and then I'm going to take a damp brush and I'm going to soften the bottom edge because the only hard edge is right up in here. And I'm going to continue that hard edge over here where it overlaps that wall and down here. And then we have a little bit more underneath here. And I'm being, again, this is kind of a very casual line. I don't want it to be perfectly straight because the barn's not even straight. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the brown matter mixed in with the raw sienna. And I'm going to put this board that is kind of prominent right here. There's a little bit of that red right there. And then it goes down to the cobalt blue. And that's where I'm going to stop at this point. So what I started with was inside this area here, and I started adding the brown matter, the ultramarine blue, with a little bit of burnt sienna in it, and I made this a little bit lighter because it's receiving a little bit more light here. It gets darker as it goes in. Then I came to this opening. Then I came underneath here with the raw sienna, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and a little bit of the cobalt blue. And I situated these darks in here. This was the last dark I put in, for the main reason is that all of this was wet. So I was waiting or timing it till when I put that value down, it would stay in one place but yet be soft enough. So this is what we're looking at, is getting this in here with the ultramarine blue, the brown matter, the raw sienna gray down this opening here, which will go darker. And then I came out to the grasses, painting it in different directions of the way it was falling. Then I sprayed some of the color up on here, on the stone. I went around the stones down here, which I will lift out later. So you guys can get started on that. Because the next thing we'll handle is the top of the barn.
Dale, what did you use for the grasses up front? What colors are those?
That was the burnt sienna with a little bit of raw sienna and a touch of the cobalt blue up in here. You're getting kind of a colorful brown up in here. And I used a little bit of it over here too, but I had a little bit more of the blue in it right here. And I had a little bit more blue in it over here. But it's a matter of getting the movement of what's going on here. So paint in the direction that you're seeing things move. So here it's this way, over here it's kind of soft, but it's still going this way. This one goes this way, and this one goes that way. Just so it has a different movement for the eye, and it'll help the eye move a little bit more. And you don't want it all the same anyways. I'll bring it up a little bit closer so you can see what's going on. It looks very busy, but my intention is to make it semi-busy because this is highly textured where the barn is a little bit more simple. So you have a nice contrast of textures going on. Because actually the top part of the barn is not really the focal point. And for those who always like to paint a little bit too light, this is what we're doing next week. A lot of light values going on in here. Nice snowstorm. Any questions at all?
Well, let you see what I'm doing so far. I don't know if I'm going the right way.
All right, go ahead. Show me what you got, Deborah. Excuse me. Yeah, so far so good. You can get your darker inside of here for that window. And the grasses is something of a building process. You're going to see me do some lifting and adding and lifting, spraying. So this is just the basis for this. But you're fine.
Dale, tell me again, grasses, what color?
The grasses are different combinations of burnt sienna, raw sienna, a little bit of cobalt, and then some ultramarine blue down in some of these two areas here with a little bit in here. But I tried to vary the color combination so there's more burnt sienna back here, a little bit more raw sienna here. Then this had the first basic wash on in here, but I started putting in some of the darks that are going to be around the rocks. And then I added more of the burnt sienna in here. This is going to become a little bit richer in this area right here later on.
And dry brush.
I was dry brushing. Over here I used a little bit more wet. As I came towards us, which is right in the middle here, I made it a more dry brush. Because even from the photograph, I gave this a little bit more top heavy up here. Because in the photograph, this equaled this too much, so I did change the proportion so that's not, the masses aren't equal to it. Now you don't want to play with the foreground too much, just enough so that we have something to build on.
Did you say you went in and did some of the flagstone?
What I did is I spattered some color up in those areas, and I painted around some of the stones in here that I felt my pattern
okay.
was already there. So you're following somewhat of a pattern that you may have already there, or you'll have to create one. Sometimes the pattern becomes apparent on the paper, and you follow that.
Dale, I think I'm,
All right, coming around.
whoop,
All
sorry.
right, that's good. You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it. I see you're back home again.
I am.
No more vacation for you.
I'll be in my Airstream on Saturday again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for a couple more days. And then I'll be in Wyoming next Thursday. So back to my studio there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm going alone and I'll be there for like 4 days. I want to paint.
Well, you
Yeah.
really didn't have a vacation last time, but
No,
I know I went through that with my older brother.
no. You need a vacation from those kinds of trips.
I actually didn't have to go anywhere. I did it all here from home until his ashes were delivered here. But that's never a fun situation.
No, mm-mm. It's never fun going through somebody else's house and things and
He didn't have a house. He was in a nursing home, which
Oh.
I did not know. Long story, but he lived his life and burnt the candle at both ends and cut in the middle. And
Right.
unfortunately, he died too early.
yeah. Same with my brother.
I think there's one in every family. I'm not sure.
Pretty sure at some point.
Yeah, I always feel bad for the only child, though.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to come around. Diana, see how you're doing.
Hold on, let me pick up my. I think this is where using the back side of the paper is
Yeah.
problematic at the bottom. It's okay for the barn, but it's not really good for the
Okay,
ground.
hold your camera down a little bit more. Okay. Well, that's not bad. You're getting a little bit too dark too quick with the grasses. You may want to spray that and lift up with a paper towel to get more texture.
Okay.
Janet, how are you doing? With a smile. I'll come back to you. Do you want me to come back to you? Okay. Beth,
Yeah, I'm having an issue right now. All of a sudden I realized that my barn wall was expanding into the blue.
that's all right because the tree that we're going to put over here, and I have it
Oh,
overlapping, that will disappear.
Strategic, thank you. Anything else?
No, you're fine up to this point.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible because we're going to go back into this area here because if you squint down or take your glasses off, you can see that this whole area up in here is much darker than what I have it. But I anticipated that because the paint dries lighter. But we're going to be washing through here and adding more things. But you have to initiate those values and colors into there and able to work with it. But this is going to go darker. So that'll make the wall seem lighter too. But you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah. Should I come?
No, I first I had to unmute, then I have to catch my paintbrush.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're fine. Okay, good.
Okay, all right.
Barb, can I see yours, please?
If you must.
Yes, I must. That's part of my job. All right, you're getting there. There's that post that's right here, Barb. Right in this.
Post show. Yes.
That's all one dark area in here, so we're going to darken that up because that needs to be pushed back. That's
Okay.
right next to this doorway here. But you'll see that appear. You can darken it now or we'll
Oh,
darken it.
so on mine, I made my window too big.
You what?
I made my window too big. Is that right? Because I have no door except this skinny little thing here.
Well, this is the doorway that's inside, and then there's this opening right here.
Okay.
So it looks like, I don't know, a hatchet.
Okay.
So it's all
All right.
one shape, and then we have those shapes on the inside.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
Marge,
Thanks.
you bet. Marge, can I see yours, please? All right. You have maybe lost a little bit too much light going through the bottom here at this point, but you could spray water on it and pull it up later. But you're fine. I already looked at yours, Denise, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Lori? Okay. You're getting there. That's good. You're fine. We haven't really gone too far into this, so we're good. And last but not least, Kathy. Okay, good. Very good. That's where you want to be. All right, we're going to go to the upper part of the barn.
Pardon me?
Pardon?
What? What'd you say?
I said, you're fine, and we're going to go into the upper part of the barn here now.
Okay, doke.
So.
You want to come back to me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm not quite done, but I'm closer than I was before.
That's what happens when you are over 30. You forget things. No, you're fine, Janet. We're going to tone down the inside of the barn later on, but you're fine.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go first up into the eave up here, and I'm going to take the brown matter, a little bit of the ultramarine blue, like so, and I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna. That will gray it down a slight bit. And I am going to go in here and I'm going to paint this first up in here. Like so. I'm going to bring it right on down. And then this comes down like so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the more of the brown matter and some of the color I've already mixed up, mix it in there so it grays itself down. And I'm going to pull this color down from up on top here. We're going to get it darker later on, but we don't need to get it too dark now. And I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to this as I come down. And a little bit more of the brown matter in with the raw sienna. And then I'm going to lift it up a little bit. So we're starting to get some of these craggly things. I'm going to leave some of the color I originally put on show through, or leave it alone completely, because I don't want to over paint the top of the barn. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that cobalt blue here mixed in with the raw sienna, and I'm going to put that right through here. And I'm making sure that it stays vertical, that it's not leaning as the barn is, because the top part's not leaning too much. At this point, I'm going to take a little bit of the brown matter, mix it in over here, and I'm going to add a little bit of texture in here. And I'm going to take my smaller brush. Got to play a little bit of the dentist where you have multiple tools in your hands. And I'm adding, while I'm doing this at this point, is that I'm adding in these individual boards so that they diminish as they come up. They remain soft. And I'm going to take my middle sized cat tongue here, along with more of the brown matter. And I'm kind of being very casual about it at this point. A little bit more brown matter. And the reason why I'm increasing it right here, we're getting into the area of the focal point. And I want to be able to make it a little bit more intense. Now, at this point, before we go any further, I'm going to pull out some of the individual boards that are in here and soften it. Again, this is the second time around through this part of the barn, and I'm pulling out just a few things. This has a lot pulled out over here, because there's no detail in this quite yet. There's a lot of grayness to this as we get into this area here. And I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to change up the movement of the color that I'm putting down. And then I'm going to dry brush it over in this area. Now, I'm not even concerned about the darks that are up in here and underneath here. I'm only concerned about the movement and the texture on the barn itself. And while it's still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of brown matter to it here and there to give it a little bit more bounce right around the focal point. Focal point is going to be in this area right here. And while we have that, I'm going to also create a dark to go underneath the lip of the boards here. And that's going to go right in here. If it bleeds up into there, that's fine because it'll keep the edges soft. And this I want to remain a little bit softer here. So we have the feeling of what's going on in the barn, and I've made it a little bit more dramatic than what's in the photograph, for the reason that you need to have a little bit of balance between all of this going on down here and what's going on up here. And I always adjust, I never paint exactly what's in the, we have a little bit of darkness underneath here, that board, those things have a tendency of bleeding or bleaching in different ways. Now, I'm leaving this dry, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to lift out some things at the bottom, so when we come back, we can work in a number of different areas. So right back here, I'm going to bring up some of the grasses into the darkness by lifting. So what I've done here is I'll bring it up a little bit closer. You can see those light grasses going into that dark area there. And I want to bring out just a little bit of a light post right here. So I'm adjusting some of the lights softly. And I'm going to put in a piece of wood that's like a brace back here to bring a little bit of interest back in there. And again, I'm going to continue lifting out to create a little bit more interest down here. And I'm going to start lifting out a little bit more dramatic light on this wall here so that we can get some of our lights light enough here on the wall. Because most of the lights in there is some of the light rock and some of the mortar that they put in. And I need to lighten this up here. This will make that dark next to it seem a little bit darker. And I'm moving around and down and across. And I have this as being a lot lighter. This is a horizontal plane, the top of this wall, and that's going to pick up more light because the sunlight is above it. So I'm trying to bring things out that are lighter at this point so I can see what the value changes are, what the contrast is, so I can accentuate some of the darks. This is a lot lighter. But I never want anything really white because white doesn't exist, but I am really just caressing the paper at this point and pulling out some of those lights. Because all those dark accents will be put in later on where you have two surfaces butting up against each other. and that will set things off quite a bit. And this is getting a little bit more reflected light back in here. So I'm being very careful not to lift too much, but just enough. And this is not quite dry yet here. I'm going to accentuate a few more of the boards up in here. I got to try to get them right next to one another so we have a little bit of a dark crack between them. And this part of the building gets a little bit lighter because of that bleached out gray wood, that weathered look. And there's a little bit too much value change right there. Okay, so anything else I can add some more change of value in here, soften it a little bit. Like so. Yeah, I'm going to bring some of the grasses up over the opening of the barn here. So that will keep that part a little bit softer. So that's where I'll stop. So what I did initially was I went up and I started up here and I added the dark. And then immediately I went down below it and added different combinations of the brown matter, the raw sienna, a little bit of the burnt sienna, so that this remains quite soft up in here. This will be a little bit darker later on. And then I just kept on painting in a vertical fashion all the way across, trying to create different variations of those different colors in different forms all the way across. This, when I got over here, I just dry brushed it very carefully. But we'll put in the opening of the door and so forth up there later. But just to get a variety of color going all the way up and down will be sufficiently important to this. And it's got to have that weathered look. It cannot look perfect. You're going to lift, you're going to spray it, you're going to lift, and you're going to soften. Then I came down in here and I started adding more textures down in here and a little bit over here. I lifted up this ledge here, a little bit here. I added this post and support here, and I lightened up the ledge here and I lightened this up here. So it's a lot of little things that I started lifting at this point in this area here. And I'm going to change my water. I'll be right back. one more picture. Anybody have any questions at all?
Yeah, Dale, I got a question. On the left side of this barn, you on the lower left side, yeah, right there. Yeah, right there. So is that part of the barn or is that grasses or trees or because in the picture it's trees and stuff.
It's on the photograph. If you look real close, you usually don't see it right away, but there is a what I call a chicken wire fence that comes in like this, and there's a post by the door, and it shoots down like this. I omitted that, so I'm going to be putting rocks and grass in here.
Okay. Okay.
You know, sometimes you have to look at the photograph a few times to find out, and I didn't remember what was there, and I kind of crept in on the property to take a picture, which I usually don't like to do. I did that.
Okay.
Once. I did that once here in Indiana to what I thought was an abandoned house, and I stepped off the road onto the property to get a better picture, and somebody opened the door and released the dog on me.
Oh no.
Yeah, I got back to the car
goodness.
just in time.
Wow.
And my wife was sitting there looking at me like, you have never been chased by a dog before. I said, I thought it was an abandoned house.
Oh wow.
But, you know, I wasn't on their property that much. I was still on the leeway to the road, but
They didn't like it.
they didn't like it, no.
Yeah, because what I did, I guess I mistook your drawing. I thought that it was like foliage, but there are bricks on your drawing, bricks to go to the building. So that's probably why I left that part kind of light.
There's a lot of rocks in here.
Yeah.
A lot of rocks over here. I'm going to be adding in some other stuff. I don't want to tell you right now.
Okay. All right. All right.
I left this as grasses in here. There's steps coming down here.
Yeah. Okay.
Dale, I think I'm done for the moment.
Okay, let's see what you got.
Dale?
Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh,
I was contemplating.
I've obviously started to put in some more darks, but
That's all right. No, you're fine.
yeah?
There's not going to be much over here because I'm going to address the tree and so forth over here.
Right.
A little bit of a few things there because if I bring in too much here, the barn will come forward over there.
Right.
You're fine though right now. You're good.
Okay. I like this one. This one's fun.
It's a lot of fun. We haven't done a barn in a long time, or we haven't done a close-up of a barn.
Right, where you get to
Going-
play with the
going through my
textures.
files and found something a little bit different. It's like that blizzard that is we're doing next week.
Yeah, that's gonna be good too.
Light, airy, and you'll have to proceed with somewhat of caution on it, but it should be interesting. That I got from a video of a little big town in the Upper Peninsula called Calumet. And they had a big mining town up there at one point. Of course, most of the mining towns are defunct now. There's a lot of ghost towns in the Upper Peninsula, with maybe just a few inhabitants. I don't know what they do for a living, but you do wonder sometimes. And I don't think this barn is long for this world anyway, so. Do you own that Airstream, Denise, or are you renting it?
Oh, it's an Airbnb.
Oh, it's an Airbnb.
Yeah, so it's in Chestertown, and the hotel there is like a Hampton something or other that I don't like.
Yeah.
And this Airstream, I looked at Airbnbs, and this one is like 2 miles from where I need to be, and it's
Oh, okay.
it's on a horse farm,
Oh, that's cool.
and it's it's $100 a night, where the other place that is,
Oh, yeah, they start charging you God knows what.
yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. Just
I used to love to see those driving down the road when I was a kid. They looked like spaceships.
right.
Is it nice on the inside? Roomy?
Yeah, it's 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't really been updated, like in terms of, but it's plenty roomy. It's got a little stove and a refrigerator and dishwasher or not dishwasher, sink and microwave and
Oh, that works.
cabin. The hardest part is the bathroom because it's like a handheld and it's, small with a
Yeah.
curved wall.
Yeah,
But-
it's kind of like being on a boat.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it feels
Yeah.
like.
My brother used to live on a boat, and his washroom felt like it was 2x2.
Yeah.
Hi, Dale. This is Kathy. I'm signing out.
Oh, yes, that's right. Can I see what you have before you leave?
Sure.
I remember your note this morning. I forgot. All right, you're doing fine. You'll see the rest on the video, but send me your finished photo in an email.
Okay, will do. Thanks
Okay.
much. This was a great session. Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Dale, it's Beth. Can I just have you check mine? Because I like to overwork things. So
Yeah.
I want to,
Nope, you're fine. You're good.
okay.
Off in this area right here,
Yeah.
you can add a little bit more dry brush grass that seems to be blowing up against the barn.
Okay.
Just drag your brush in that in kind of a half quarter circle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else ready to show?
Okay, I'll go.
Who was that?
Oh, it's Barb.
Barb, okay. All right, hold it up a little bit higher and to your left. A little bit higher. Okay, you're doing fine. Good.
Okay.
I'm gonna come around and check and see how everybody's doing. Can I see yours, Diana, please?
Hold on, let me flip the,
Okay.
okay, can you see it?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay.
Good. Okay, I'll come back to you, Janet, just a minute. Just saw Beth. Deborah, how are you doing? Okay, good. All right, wonderful. And Barb, did I see yours?
You did see mine.
Okay. You can tell how short my memory is lately. Marge, can I see yours, please? Okay, good. Very good. We want that dilapidated look of this barn, trust me. Wonderful. Lori, can I see yours, please? Okay, good. Lori, you're going to be putting more color out in front of the barn right in here, in this area right here, because we're trying to balance off some of these colors, but you're going to add a little bit more color in here, dry brush. But you're fine. And Janet. Okay, great. Very good. All right. You can, up in this part, up in the wooded part, the siding, you can lift a little bit with a damp brush, just to get that barn wood feeling. All right. I'm going to carry over here. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and a little bit of the raw sienna and a touch of the burnt sienna and a little bit of the cobalt. So we got kind of a grayish mass here. I'm going to add a little bit more burnt sienna to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with a very quick wash, I am going to tone down the whole inside of the barn here. I'm going to add a little bit more cobalt blue to it as I move down, like so, like this, so that that tones that barn down. Then I'm going to add more raw sienna to it as I move down here, because it is picking up some warmer light, and I'm painting around the wall here, like so. So that will shove that back in, and I'm going to lift a little bit down here to find that floor. And the last thing I'm going to do is up here, I'm just going to pull out some of the beams that we're seeing, the bottom of the 2x8s or whatever it is up here, just to give a little bit of character to that, just a slight bit, okay? Now, we're going to go all the way to the other end of the barn, and I am going to start off first by painting the underneath part of the eave, and I took the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and I'm going to take a little bit of the brown matter, and I am going to make this a little bit darker up in here, like so. So it starts overhanging the barn with a little bit more prominence. And then I'm going to take my 1-inch brush here by taking a little bit of the color, and I'm going to pull that down
What were those colors again? Sorry, Dale.
That was the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of the brown madder. And we have a little bit of a shadow area right here. But I needed to make this a little bit more prominent and dark. And it might take another wash, but I'm feeling that we're probably okay on this for right now. And I need to lift a little bit there. Now, that gives us the darkness that we're looking for up there. I'm not getting into the character of the top part of the barn just yet, but I need to put this tree in. And before I put the tree in, I'm going to take that burnt or the ultramarine blue, a little bit more of the brown madder, and I am going to paint this in a little bit darker here. I'm going to denote some of the bottom of the boards in here, just a little bit. And I'm going to emphasize the support beam there, and I'm going to kind of tease this down into the grass a little bit. So I'm painting what you call negative spaces down here. Keep it on the softer side. And I'm going to do the same thing in here. I'm going to make this a little bit darker, a little bit more pronounced. There is a piece of wood sticking out here, and I left that little bit of light there of a board falling. And what I'm going to do is that board right here, that light part, I'm going to continue on the other side as it fell down. So it adds a little bit of interest of the space in that area. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to put the tree in. And I'm taking my smallest brush, which is my liner brush, and I'm going to start by putting in very carefully, very nonchalant, all these branches that comes up from this tree back here. I'm not going to make it as heavy as it is in the middle, but I am going to allow it to overlap the barn a little bit to where it's not doing that in the photograph, but it helps if you tie it in a little bit. And I'm just allowing it to kind of sweep around through here. And allow the overlapping branches to happen and the trunks of the tree here. Bring it up into this a little bit. Just so it looks like it's encroaching on the barn just a tad. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it, a little bit of cobalt blue.
And that was ultramarine blue, burnt.
Or the brown madder and the burnt sienna.
Yeah.
So I'm just adding a little bit of blue to the mixture that I had already. And I don't want to take it too far. So I'm going to go on down into the grasses here by taking a little bit more of the burnt sienna mixed in with that mixture I have here. And I'm going to start to add some texture down at the bottom of the grasses where it's receiving a little bit less light, and I'm painting in some negative areas. Then I'll go to the raw sienna, and I'm going to take a little bit of that blue that's over there, and I'm going to pull this into here. Now, at this point, I don't look at the photograph all that much, which it took me a long time as a student to kind of pull myself away from the photograph. But I'm allowing the painting to tell me what it needs and not the photograph to tell me what I need to do. So I start adding things occasionally. I'll look at where I'm at on the photograph, but I don't overthink the process. I'm trying to get the feeling of what I have going on here without looking at the photograph. Now, I am going to go in and I'm going to kind of glance at the photograph. I'm going to start putting in some of the rocks up in here. And I'm going to change the colors every so often so that they're not all the same color, not all the same size. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a bearing. So you can see that I'm leaving open spaces just to signify the rocks. If you put in every rock, it's going to look wrong. And I'm also being very careful on the sizes. Some bigger, some smaller, some cooler, some warmer, just so that we have a little bit of variety within them.
Which colors are you using?
I'm using the burnt sienna, raw sienna, the cobalt blue. You can start seeing all the colors that I put in there. And sometimes I'll put rocks against one another, other times I'll leave open spaces. Because if you put everyone in, every rock in, it will appear flat. So I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna in here. And I'm moving over to the floor here. There's a little bit of darkness right here. And then I'm going to go over to the other wall here. And there's a big rock right here. And I'm going to put a couple of small ones in here. Just to give the idea. Now, the thing about putting rocks in the walls, you can sit there and noodle things around. I'm putting in some larger rock, some smaller rock, and I'm just trying to keep it fairly simple. Put in some cooler rock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this grayish color and I'm going to spray it onto the wall just a little bit. Then I'll go back and now that this is dry up here, I want to go in and put that opening to that door. So I'm taking the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the brown madder, a touch of the burnt sienna. So I have kind of a interesting dark. And it falls in right about here on the photograph. And I feel it needs to move over just a little bit. So I'm going to put that dark in right here. And I'm not going to make it as solid dark as it is in the photograph, because that's pretty darn dark. And then we have a couple of boards here. We have the slider, like so. And there's certain things that I feel that the painting needs that I'm going to put in, and I'll show you what to do and how to do it. We have some dark underneath here, but we have this piece of wood right up here that I have to take the value that is around it and make it a little bit more prominent of a value for that light board. Instead of pulling it out, I'll paint around it. And while that dries, I'm going to go on the interior of the building here. And I have this window here, or opening in the wall. I'm going to darken that up just a little bit. I'm also going to take my fingernail and I'm going to put in some hanging ropes here, just for character. And then underneath the window we have a darker patch here of value. A little spot here. I'm going to darken in the doorway. That's right here. And then we have this dark space over here. Now, I'm going to take the brown matter here, a little bit of raw sienna. And I'm going to add a few accents of color on the inside here. Just a few things here and there. We got the doorway bottom here. I still need to make this a little bit darker. Then I can come in and emphasize a few more of the stones that are in here. Littler ones, smaller ones, just to bring it out a little bit more. I still need to add an accent underneath here. And I need to then start finishing off things at the bottom here. And I'm doing it very casually, some dots and dashes of color to a certain extent. And I'll pull out other things later. So up in here, I am going to come in and I'm going to denote some of the boards here. And again, very casually. And let it taper off as it goes back. So we don't have all the boards showing as we wouldn't have all the rocks showing. And take a little bit of the cobalt. A little cobalt down there. And I'm going to add some cobalt right in next to this opening here. Take my finger and soften it. And then I'm going to add in small strips of color later on, but I don't want to do it right now. So I keep on looking back and forth what needs to be adjusted. Some of the darks need to be adjusted. I find that the area in here needs to be broken up just a tad more. So I'm going to put a couple fallen boards right through here. They're not going to be that noticeable, but I just want to break that area up a little bit more. In this area in here, I feel there needs to be something here that is kind of wood that's kind of stacked in here, just to give it a little bit of extra interest. Then I'll go back into the grasses down here and add things. There's a couple of things I want to add in here before I do any smaller detail. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift out some of the lighter rocks that are down here. So I'm going to take my 1-inch brush and I'm going to scrub the paper a little bit and keep on rinsing it out, wiping off the paper. And start lifting out just a few things, and then I can work around them later. So I keep on drying, rinsing the brush out, drying it off. And I'll denote some of the rocks down here a little bit, but not too much, because otherwise you can get carried away again. I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna almost straight here. And I'm going to emphasize this just a little bit more, some texture in here. And I'm going to take the, well, I'll take the other brush. And I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to bring up some of the grasses in here. And I'm trying to bring some of this color down just for emphasis a little bit more. Then I will work the around the rocks a little bit. I don't want to overwork the rocks because I got so much going on up here. I'm going to put a couple shadows underneath some of these rocks here so that you can see them kind of coming off the wall a little bit. This I want to emphasize as being a little bit bolder in color. And then pull out just a little bit of old lumber lying on the ground here, allowing it to go in and out of the grasses. Now, the last thing I want to do is I'm going to have to get that brush down here I dropped. Add a little bit of an accent here. I'm going to add a few accents inside the barn here. Take the yellow light or medium that I had. Haven't used a lot of it, but I need to use it at this point. I started using it at the beginning, but I'm going to give this thing a little bit more color. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pull the painting sideways. And I am going to put in some of the creases in the woods here. And I'm going to be very casual, but I want to make sure that they're running perpendicular to the rest of the. I just want to put a little bit in here, not too much, just to give it a little bit of character, and some over here. I'm going to take straight cobalt blue and add an accent of blue in here and here. Once down here, just making the interior semi-interesting. Still looking at this opening. I need to put in an accent of dark underneath this piece of wood here. Let it bleed, doesn't do anything. And take a little bit of this yellow here in a clean space. I want to add a little bit of yellow in the foreground here to pull it out. But a lot of these little dark accents at the end become somewhat important. There's another piece of wood coming across here. There we go. I don't know whether you guys can hear that, but my puppy is running around upstairs like crazy. And just adding a few accents here and there of some darker wood. I feel that we need to do a little bit more right in here with some cooler colors to play off the warmer colors. A few larger openings of the cracks around some of the wood. Okay, let me take the tape off and see where we're at. That will give you folks some time to finish up, but this will give you the general idea of where you need to go. But I did add a lot of things going on in the interior here. Probably have to add a few other dark accents when it dries, but you get the idea of the process. And I'm looking at it as I'm taking the tape off. The underneath the eaves, right up here, that needs to go a little bit darker yet. Only right up against where the sky is at. The only other thing I'm seeing here is I need to add a few warm accents of color on the barn just to bring some of that more intense color up. This got a little bit too much, so I'm going to lift it out. With a little bit of the blue on the bottom here. Now, a lot more things could be done down here, but you're talking about noodling around for quite a while. So you guys go ahead and finish up what you have, and we'll take a look at what you got. Right now, I'm just adding a few accents in here and there, minor little things. Any questions at all?
Hey Dale, it's Beth. I feel like the details are what always gets me. And like your doorway to the barn is so intriguing and cool. It makes you want to look into it. Mine makes it look like, what the heck is going on? What is that?
Well, I added not only this dark patch in the doorway and the window, but I took, while this was wet, I took my fingernail and scraped out like some hanging ropes or something. And I added in a board falling here I added in a couple of stripes and lifted out a couple of boards here just to break that area up. Because otherwise it's a large area to be so dark with nothing in it. It's like I allowed a board to come through here and I put a brace in here. It's little details that I've observed in other barns over the years of things falling on the inside. So I wanted to break that area up a little bit. And I did put a wash over the entire thing, and then I pulled out the other things that were in there. And I've been adding little accents of dark here and there. This is not as dark as it is over here. This is receiving less light. This is receiving a little bit more light here. But it's reflected light. So if you can see this a little bit closer, you can see how much interest. It's cooler over here, warmer over here, because it's receiving that light and color bouncing in from outside.
Okay.
And I put a lot of different color up in here, warm and cool and a little bit warmer as I came over. And then up here, I didn't create as much warmth because of everything I put down in here. So I'm trying to balance off little detail to more detail.
Yeah, looks good. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
I do?
Looks beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I get paid big bucks?
Bigger bucks than I do.
Well, for a long time I didn't get paid no bucks, so don't feel bad. When I started off teaching at the American Academy, I got $8 an hour.
Wow.
Which, you know,
Not big bucks.
1979 was, you know, a fair amount of money for a beginning teacher. I used to tell my students I got $1 a day and I had all that power. But what I remember on this barn, this wall was going kittywampus. It was falling out on the top and kind of tucked in. And this one here was not leaning because that's the camera angle. I've straightened it out, but that was pretty solid. But as you move down to the end of the barn, it was moving in all different directions. And I think the roof had needed repair quite a bit. So if you don't have a good roof, the rest of it will crumble fast. But it's trying to get, you're trying to denote some of the form, but not create all the form in there. But I did add more in there. But there was a lot of things going on in the ceiling. I just wanted to denote a few things and leave it alone. And there's always things that you see as you move through the painting that you need to tone down a little bit or lift or whatever the case may be.
Dale, I tried to pull down the color from the roof overhang to create the shadow on the top part, and it ended up lifting the paint rather than pulling it down.
I put it down right away. When I put it down, then I took my 1-inch brush and I dragged it down so that you don't see a definite stop and start point right here.
Right, but it pulled it off instead of dragged it down.
Then you had too much water on your brush. I still had paint on this brush from doing this. So when I pulled it down, it softened it and it brought some of the paint down. Then I softened it down here. Not up here.
Oh, I didn't use that brush to paint with, to put the paint on. So that's what I did wrong.
If you press the button on the end, it'll automatically happen.
Thank you.
I've had students borrow my brushes to see what would happen. And they said, this is not working the same way. I said, well, you didn't press the on button on the end of the brush. If I could only show you the paintings I did in my early years, you'd see how terrible they were. But all that terrible has to accumulate into something later. Here, let me hold it up closer, Beth.
Yeah, I really like the grays that you have too on the stones. I totally messed mine up. How do you get that color combination?
Okay, what I cheated a little bit.
Okay.
The grays on the stone, I took the white paint and added a little bit of cobalt blue and raw sienna to it, and I just wanted to lighten the area up. I could take a old oil painting brush that I have, and I could lift and get the same thing, but I just wanted to kind of glaze across it with translucent watercolor. So
Okay.
when you add white to paint to a color, and then you add a lot of water, you get a translucent effect or a milky effect. And I can glaze across things and still show the color underneath, so it doesn't block it out completely.
So that's white watercolor paint?
White gouache.
White gouache, got it. Okay.
Which I show the people in my workshops how to use transparent watercolor transparently, translucently, and opaque by using white when you want to make it opaque so you can't see through the color to what's underneath, or you add a lot of water and you do a glaze, which is almost like a stained glass window. It's kind of milky and you can still see the color from underneath pop through. And then of course transparent. And I really did nothing out here after the first wash. This is all the first wash in there. So I just allowed that to fall off. So all my work was up in here. Keep it plugged in over there. Now if I wanted to bring out, excuse me, the mortar a little bit more, I can go to that white paint and add a little bit of the raw sienna to it. Excuse me. And I can come in here and I can add in some of that light between the stone, which is actually the mortar. I can make that wall appear a little bit lighter when necessary. But how much I want to do that, not too much, because it will take away from. But I'm using it kind of on the translucent side. It's little touches at the end. And usually you could spend an hour with doing little things, but not painting the full hour. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. And I'm just going to add a few more color up, just a little bit more color up in here, very lightly, even though it's more gray and washed out. It's just a matter of a few accents here and there. This is where you're stepping back from your painting quite a bit. But all these little touches that you do towards the end will hopefully bring the painting more to life. But right now I'm just lifting out some of the lighter boards that I feel need to be lifted out. Because I do want a little bit more character up in certain places. That way that pushes that back and this will come forward just by more color and lack of color. This is also, if you do too much, this is where you could lose the painting, which I've done that before too.
Hey Dale, this is Lori.
Yes.
I'm going to call it quits because I want to look at the outline and things a little bit better so that I don't lose the shapes of everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just kind of working on the grasses, but I need to figure out where the steps and that whole section to the left where it's recessed going into the rooms.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I need to kind of, I'm going to watch your video and kind of figure that out because that really kind of draws you in.
Okay.
And right now I'm doing more like a coloring book.
What I did remember, Lori, is when I had put all this stuff in here, I toned the whole thing in, and then you'll see it in steps. But the second to the last thing I did was very quickly I took my 1-inch brush and I washed across the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I left it because if you go back and try to wash across it again, you will lift the color. So I very quickly went across it, and I ended up lifting out things and putting things in after that. But I let it dry.
Yeah. Okay.
If you get impatient with it, it will backfire on you.
Oh, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah,
But,
I'm sure we all have.
and that. So, well, thank you very much. I'll
Yes,
watch your
yeah.
video, and what I'll do is I'll stop and start it to slow it
yeah.
down.
Let me see what you have before you leave, please, though.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'm not very far.
You need to be more forceful on your color.
Yep, yep.
Don't be afraid of using too much color. The reason being is that I'd rather have the students use more color than what they think is necessary, because it's easier to pull you back than it is to push you forward.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what kind of day I'm having too. I did the other painting, finished it up, and I did go dark on that one.
Oh, that's turning out nice. I like that. That's good.
That was
Very
the flip
good.
side. Okay, well, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Well, have a good weekend.
Okay, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Dale, I gotta run, but, and I need a lot more details. It's Denise.
Yeah, but you got all the good bases there, which is good. Yeah, you're
Well,
fine.
in my dark shadows, I mean, I feel like it's more important to kind of make sure they're all the same color tone.
Well, this I washed across in here with a darker
Cobalt, yeah.
cobalt and a little bit of the blue in it, the darker blue, the ultramarine, and I
Yeah.
added just a touch of the brown matter. And as I washed across it very quickly, I let that dry, and then I went back in and added the darker darks and lifted the lights out. Then I added a few accents of hanging things and
Okay.
and so forth.
Okay.
But
Well,
you're in a good place at this point. So
Yeah, I feel like it's at least got the depth.
yeah,
And I don't want to go overboard on the detail. I think right now I'm going to lift stuff out.
yeah. But you did fine.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
All right, have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Hey Dale, it's Beth. I'm going to stop soon because mine's turning into a hot mess. I do have a question though. When you're lifting the color out with your brush,
Yes.
I, at the end of each thing, end up with little marks going into the next thing. Is that just practice on stopping before?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
practice on stopping. And I'll take this brush. This is usually what I use to lift. And I'll take the brush. I will squeeze all the water out of it on a paper towel. And then I will take and I will very carefully, and I'll keep on lifting until I get to my desired lightness. So I
Okay.
lighten that up quite a bit. I am very careful in not overdoing it. That's the thing that you have to remember. Don't over.
Yeah, I think that's my problem. I'm like, I start whipping away at it and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa.
You remember the process slows down to a crawl at the end. And usually when I'm doing a studio painting, I'm down here by myself and I am talking to myself too. But I will start working, and usually what I'll do is I've gotten to this extent, I will lift up this here and I will look at it from a distance. I usually have it on an easel, and I don't paint flat through the whole thing. But I'll stand back about 4, 5, 6 feet and look at it and decide what are the first two things I need to address. I go do that, step back, and I look at it again until I feel it's done. But it's something that you have to have patience at the end and not rush forward too fast, too far. Because I was very impatient as a student. I wanted it to get done very quickly, and I can't tell you how many pieces of paper I ruined. But with that in mind, everything I ruined only made it easier for me later on. And then I took all my old paintings I didn't like later on. I had a stack of them, and I decided to see what I could do with them. Could I fix them, or could I learn something on them, or could I do both? So I took all the old paintings. I threw probably 75% away after that, but I decided to see what I could do. Experiment with them. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain.
It's true.
And
Okay,
those
let
are
me
in landfill.
just show you what I've got, and then I'll
I think you're fine, except all your rocks are the same value, same color.
Yeah,
I
it
have
got
blue rocks
bad.
in
I
here.
stopped.
I have blue rocks, yellow rocks, dark violet rocks, brown rocks, and I've altered the brush in different ways. I have small, I have smaller, I have medium, I have large, so that you can see the variety of rock I put in, and it's very casual. And there's a little bit of a pattern to them, but yet it's not complete, because if you put in every rock and so forth, it's going to flatten out. This gives a little bit of character to it and allows the eye to move and roam with it.
All right, I'm going to work on it. Thank you, Dale.
All right, you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
All right, Dale, it's Diana. Do you want to take a look? I have to step away.
Yep. Step away from the painting.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Hold your camera down and to your left. All right, you're getting there. You're going to have to show a little bit more interest in those really dark areas by lifting and adding things in there. As I did, if you can see this a little bit closer, how much stuff I put in there that wasn't in the photo.
All right, hold on. Don't move it yet. I want to take a picture of it so I can
see it.
So I can see. Turn the light off. So
that the inside left is warmer than the inside right. So
okay.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
I see you put fence posts out there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just a matter.
That seems sort of empty over on that side.
I needed to add a little bit of interest. It's like off over here, I allowed a piece of wood to go slicing through that fell from upstairs or whatever. By all rights, I could have very easily taken that and take the same line and have it begin right here. So it looks like it fell from the ceiling all the way down.
Okay.
So
okay.
Just a matter of fiddling with little details very slowly.
I will figure it out.
Okay.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Deborah.
Hi, Dale. Yeah, hi. I'm ready. I think I'm going to work on it more when...
We need to add a little bit richer color up in here, Deborah. Just
okay.
Right in this area right here above this opening, this big opening.
Okay.
But you've got all the right things in there, the right place. Just add a little bit of texture and color up in here.
Okay. Yeah, I think on paper is a lot smoother, although it says it's rough. It didn't seem, for this painting, it didn't seem that rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. We're doing snow, dear.
Yeah, I had enough snow, deal.
Well, it's only in the picture.
Okay. All right, take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Dale, are you ready to see a big mess?
Oh, come on. It's not that bad.
No, I mean, it's okay. Every time I do something, I learn something from it. I just haven't done anything like this. So anyway, here we go.
All right. You haven't gone too far, which is the good thing. The second thing is you need to work on the upper half of the barn yet to add the feeling of individual boards without putting in too much as far as individual boards go. It's lighter over here. It's a little bit more intense and detailed here above where the focal point's at.
Okay.
And I did a lot of dry brushing. I put down color. I lifted up color. When I put down some of the color, I took my thumb and moved it up. It's just a matter of, if you're looking at it up close, there's really nothing there. If I bring this right up to the camera, you can see, if I can move it around in any direction, you're seeing what is there. There's not too much there. It's just an indication of the feeling of the boards.
Exactly. And you know what? I didn't do any dry brushing. I didn't even remember that we were supposed to do that. And all I was so concerned about is using a variety of colors and getting vertical, but that's okay. I'm learning.
Yeah, take a scrap piece of paper and practice before you go back into this.
Okay.
I did that a lot as a student. I had this right alongside my board. I would test and see if the color was right. I would test dry brushing, how wet or how dry the brush was. There's all sorts of things I did as a student because it took me a long time to understand watercolor because I came from oil painting class the year before.
Okay.
Totally different. It threw me off.
Okay.
But you haven't taken it too far where you've lost anything whatsoever. But
okay,
slow your process down to a crawl when you're going through this at this point.
Okay. And then I have another question. People are talking about a video. So I guess I didn't understand that there's a video I could watch of your whole lesson I could watch again.
Yes, we send that out by Sunday night.
Okay. So what I got on Sunday night in that link, if I clicked on the link, that would take me to the video of last week's.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
If you have a problem, email me and I'll have my wife send it out to you or call you and explain it to you because I'm about as smart as a rock when it comes to that.
Okay. All right. That would be helpful, I think. Sometimes just seeing the brushes that you're using too, I don't always, I just grab something here and start using it. And so, and I know that you said, you only use 2 or 3 brushes, but that would be helpful to see on the video. And
the brushes I used the most this time was the 1 inch. I used the number 5 round, and I used the medium and the small cat tongue. The other ones I didn't use besides the toothbrush.
okay.
I have, what do I have out here? 5, 6, I have 7 brushes out here. I probably use never more than 4 or 5.
Okay.
But this is what I feel that when we decided to do the Zoom course for the palette, our intention was to have a video so the students could review it. Not everybody finishes it so they could finish it or they could redo it. And I think that other instructors that do Zoom classes, they either don't do it or they'll make you pay extra. And I don't think that's right.
No, that was really good. It was just something that I missed. The other thing is when I'm painting here, I take breaks, walk around and come back to it.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't have that luxury doing a Zoom, but that's okay. You know what I mean? I think with the whole pandemic, I have completely slowed down so much. Do you know?
Yeah, I understand that. On YouTube, there's some of my videos that we did, demonstrations from. We did 13 or 14 videos. They're not all on YouTube, but there's tips on YouTube and so forth.
Sure.
If you look under my name.
Okay.
We did one every Saturday for 13 weeks, I think.
Wow.
And that helped us tell us what day of the week it was, number one, when we were all shut down. And it was actually fun for me to do. And we send out packets like I do with this, and people could paint along. They could ask questions. But I would continue painting. I wouldn't stop. How many times I stopped here, but it was a lot of fun for us, and it really was a good thing to do, and it was entertainment for us too.
Great. Can I show you one thing I did during the week?
Sure.
Okay, can you see it? This is my second one that I did from last week.
I like that. It looks different from what I did, which is fine. But I'm looking at it, does it work within your own frame of reference? Yes, it does. And everybody came out differently. when I walk around a workshop, I may have 25 people or 20 people. I see 20 or 25 different paintings, interpretations of what I've done and different from the photograph. But I'm looking to see if it works within your frame of reference.
Right.
And I think yours is working quite well.
I really liked it too.
Good.
And then this is off of your advertisement.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that photo was kind of special to me. That was the coming out of a waterfall.
Okay.
We had my father-in-law with me. He was almost 93, and we didn't realize he was sick. He had multiple myeloma. In other words, his bones were disintegrating inside his body.
My husband has that, so I know what it is.
I'm so sorry. And we walked back to the waterfall, which was like 2.5 blocks in. It was pretty flat ground. And I went up around the waterfall on the creek that feeds it, and I ran into a bear. And he was on the other side of the creek, and I stood there for about maybe 30 seconds watching him. I was downwind from him, or upwind. He couldn't smell me. But the bears have come out of hibernation. There was still a little bit of snow in the woods, and this was Memorial Day weekend now. And I came back very quietly and very slowly, and I says, let's move back to the car. I says, there's a bear, a couple hundred yards from us here. And we got him back into the car, into the house. And his legs were a little wobbly and this and that, but by the time we got home after a week up there, we had him go see a doctor. And we found out that he had multiple myeloma.
Wow.
Which means his calcium levels were very high in his blood. And he opted to go for chemotherapy, the lowest dose you can get. And he says, I have too many things to do and you need help on the log cabin. I mean, he was a great guy. I love this guy, his own father. And he took the chemo, and he got a urinary or a kidney infection. Otherwise, the chemo was working fine. But that's what took him down, was the kidney infection.
And that happens, yes.
Yeah. And hindsight's always 20/20, but his mind was he was smart on everything, but his mind was not understanding simple things, and we didn't catch it. Not that it would have made a difference, but he was gone in 5 weeks.
Sometimes that happens really fast. My husband had a cell transplant at Mayo, Rochester,
Wonderful.
in 2020. And so he's just doing really, really well. Or I shouldn't say that, not 2020, 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good, though.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
A little prayer for him.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everything. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Have a
you're welcome.
great weekend.
You too. And
Okay.
don't behave. I don't.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I didn't think I'd hang in there this long. I'm still not done, but I'm gonna stop. I have to put my rocks in, obviously, but
Now remember, make them very random. Do
Yeah.
not put in every rock you see. You took a picture of it. I know
Yeah.
I saw you. But keep them kind of suggestive, I should use. Not, you don't want to point out every rock. You can see over on this side here that I did not make them the same amount as in the middle.
right.
More suggestive. So you want to try to keep them ambiguous at this point.
Sure.
Okay?
Sounds good.
But you're on the right path. You did fine.
I think so.
Yep.
We'll see how this goes. But
Okay.
thank you. Super fun.
All right, good. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Marge, you're the last one standing.
Am I really?
Yes.
Okay, well, here's what I have. I don't know what I missed when you were painting it, I guess. Up on the side of the barn, it looks like there's rocks or something.
Over
Yeah,
here.
like there's dabs of white. I don't know what that is. Up
Those-
on top of the barn.
I suggested,
up.
yeah, I
No,
suggested
up.
the rocks
Up
fall
on the barn,
on
on the barn itself, up high.
Those are stones.
No, up high. On the top of the barn, keep going up, 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 up. Now go over to what's my left. Other way, other direction.
This way.
Okay, now go up. No, you were in the right place. Go back to the other side,
Over here.
other side,
Yeah.
over here. And up above, next to where the door is, the top door,
Yeah.
what is that?
There's a piece of wood here.
You know, I'll show you on mine.
All right.
Up,
Show me on yours.
up. Can you see mine?
Yes.
Yeah, up here.
Oh, that is.
What is that?
That's dry brushing. I just simply went over the original wash with a dry brush just to give a little bit of texture up there.
Is it supposed to be rocks or what?
It's just wood.
Oh, okay.
I just did
Okay.
not go any further with this after the second wash.
Okay, I was just confused by that. So
Okay, so-
I haven't done that, but here's what I have, if you can see it.
Yeah, you're doing fine. Yeah, you just need to put some interest in the dark area here.
Okay, I use a lot of white. I've done that for a couple of years, so I don't have much luck lifting. So even before you were going in with your white, I already had gone in and used a lot of white in mine.
Oh, Marge.
What?
No, it's okay. I occasionally use white. I don't all the time, but occasionally I do.
I'll mix it with other colors and stuff, and I have these really fine brushes.
Yeah, as long as it's not straight white, you're fine.
Yeah, I'll show you the first one. Because I just have trouble lifting. I don't know why.
It's in the brush.
Okay, let me see. I don't know if you can see on here, but I've got some white on this.
Yeah, I see it. but
Okay,
it's okay. It's fine.
okay.
You know, the thing about watercolor, you have three different groups of people, different thoughts. The first group, which is the purist group, they believe you should always leave white of the paper here and there.
Right.
And then, which I could go with or not. It doesn't make any difference. It depends on how it affects the painting. I don't feel you need to leave white. The second group is that they paint the whole paper and they try to do it as realistically as possible or impressionistically as possible. Then you have the third group, which feels that you can use white mixed with color and use it opaquely or translucently. So in other words, if you're using it translucently, you're adding more water to the paint to glide across things, which is fine too. I do all three.
Okay.
I feel whatever I'm painting, and I want to show people the different ways to paint a painting and interpret the painting. And the only thing that by using white, I am very cautious about, I tell them that if you're in a competition where it has to be 100% transparent, you cannot use any white.
Really?
No, you can't use any white at all. It has to be transparent. Like the Transparent Watercolor Society of America, which is out in Kenosha, Wisconsin. If you get caught using white, you're bounced out of the whatever, the contest, if you want to call it.
Okay. That's interesting.
And I had a friend down in Nashville, Indiana that painted very tight, too tight for my taste, the way I do things, but everybody paints differently, thank God.
Right.
He took some white paint, added it to a little bit of a color because he felt he needed it to sign his signature. And
he got kicked out.
He got kicked out of the
Lordy.
which I thought was ridiculous.
Yes.
But they take a blue light across it and they could pick up the white, or they could look at it in person. You can see it.
Wow.
But he must have been a relative of Barney Fife to pick up on that.
Good Lord. That's terrible.
Yeah, I thought.
Well, I used to use mask all the time, and then I got tired of that, and and then I tried to avoid painting in those areas, and then
I used masking fluid once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do use it.
Uh-huh.
Just depends on what I'm trying to portray.
Right. Right. Okay. Well,
All right.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll see you next week.
Yes, you will. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.